Hi there, and welcome to the second official installment of the Sage Running Podcast. I want to thank all you guys that have supported this on Patreon, all the viewers on YouTube, all the subscribers. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes now. If you could find it, I'll link to it in the description below for this episode, but also episode 1. But today we're going to talk about some other topics. Just some random things basically that I've been thinking about, and I'll give you a quick update on how my personal training's going. I'm 13 days out from the Run Rabbit Run 100-mile race out in Steamboat Springs. It's going to be, Sandy and I were just camping on the course actually a couple days ago, kind of checking out some of the climbs. A lot of like ski access roads and stuff that's, all uphill for 10 or 13 miles and then all downhill. And then little technical spots, a little high country, high alpine running, a lot of ski slope running. We saw 6 moose out there in the 2 days that we were out there. So it'll be interesting running out there all night. About 20,000 feet of climbing, up to 10,500 feet, 10,800 feet for a maximum altitude. But of course, Steamboat Springs being a kind of a ski resort town, it's up pretty high already. Probably going to be in the 9,000 foot range for a lot of the race. So pretty high altitude mountain race. It'll be a true test. Have to run all night with the noon start time. But yeah, I'm getting nervous about that, but pretty excited about that. Slowly starting to taper now. So I'll keep you updated on that as we head into my next race. But that's what it'll be, the Run Rabbit Run 100. And if you haven't followed on YouTube, I did a Gran Fondo bike event last week where I actually rode my bike 83 miles. I actually uploaded a video of that last week, so you guys can check that out if you're just tuned into the podcast here. But I want to keep the momentum going, open for suggestions. I guess it's probably easier to comment on YouTube for future podcast topics or long-form training topics that you guys want to hear about, as well as give some nice constructive feedback and criticism. I'm open to all suggestions. I'm total noob at this. I know you spell noob. I've seen it spelled different ways now. N-O-O-B. I spelled it N-U-B-E. Total noob mistake. It's pretty funny, actually. There was one other way to spell it. I think it was N-E-W-B. So like newbie, I guess you could say newbie with an I-E at the end as well. But whatever. I don't know. I think it's funny. It's hilarious. But, I have the Yeti mic, and I'm trying to optimize the quality for you guys with some good sound. I got the little spit guard pop thing in front of the microphone. I just realized I broke my cord for the Yeti, the USB cord that connects to the computer. So I don't know if and this new cord's giving more feedback or what, but let me know how to make this a better experience for you guys, because I do want to up the quality of these. I really want to get into this, as well as, the video quality on VO2 Max Productions, my YouTube channel. Just trying to always up the film game, up the editing game, up the whole experience, because I just love media. It's just, I don't like writing, actually, but I love blogging, not blogging, video logging, vlogging the videos, and then, of course, just ranting on with training talks, podcasts, hopefully some interviews here in the future. We could get some lined up, or any other topics you guys want to hear about. But today I think I just wanted to talk about some recent things. I had been, we'll get into it. I'm going to compare some of the things that Malcolm Gladwell, pretty famous author, what he's written in his book, Outliers, but also, I read Tipping Point is another one of his big sellers. David and Goliath is another one. I think I've pretty much read all of Malcolm Gladwell's big publications except for What the Dog Saw. But yeah, Tipping Point was business class, business school reading, typical school reading. I think I read one of those in high school, which was quite a while ago. And then David and Goliath was a little bit newer, more recent. But I was listening to the audio tape recently driving back on a long car trip with Sandy. She hadn't read Outliers, but we were listening to the audiobook as we were driving, and it was a good review because I started thinking about things he mentioned, and I won't get too in-depth because I don't want to spoil the book for you, but I just want to apply maybe some of those principles and concepts that he writes about in the book Outliers to running, because I think there are a lot of connections that one could make. And again, big fan of Malcolm Gladwell. I don't always agree with some of the things I guess he writes, but obviously a brilliant guy. And fun side fact, he was actually a really good, and he still is a runner, but he was actually a pretty fast miler, 1500 meter runner. I was looking up what he had run, and it was like he ran a really fast 1500 meter when he was like in high school, and then he took that on and ran. He ended up running a 3:55 1500 meters, which is about equivalent, give or take, to a 4:15 mile, which is ironically exactly the same time that I ran for 1500 meters in college. Granted, I'm not very good at riding at all, and I wasn't focused on the mile, but I don't know how focused he was. He was obviously knows something about running and has a knack for it. So mad respect there, and definitely makes it interesting in this podcast to apply running to what he writes about in Outliers, which is more about the beginning part of the book, at least, is more about other sports, other professions, other ways that artists could create or have the opportunity to create and to reach and to improve in your skill, to improve in your endeavors, to actually try to reach your maximum potential. And that's kind of what I want to touch on here next is how what he writes about in Outliers, and I'll just give you a general idea. He calls it the 10,000 hour rule, and I'm not sure if he has that label first or if it's a generic thing that he referenced, but so forgive me if I'm not giving credit to where credit's due. But 10,000 hour rule, a lot of you probably know, is a general way of saying, hey, you need to spend 10,000 hours mastering or practicing your craft before you could become a master of it. So it's real applicable to, well, in the book, it's computer programmers, guys that are just starting off when computers are really coming into, well, the personal computer hasn't really come in, but they're developing software, and being able to have all this time really practicing hard, really programming hard for years and years and years, maybe even decades, is something that requires 10,000 hours. And when you hit the 10,000 hour mark, supposedly, you're going to be at a level of mastery, a level of skill that's very, very high, and you could really, you're really hitting your potential when you put in those 10,000 hours. And the same thing applies to other sports. He talks about sports. He also talks about artists a lot. You could say we're all artists, but artists, painters, graphic designers, whatever. You spend practicing really hard. Musicians is probably the best example, actually. Technical, like classical piano players, just practicing, or violin players. It takes a lot of practice to really get into the zone where you're an expert, so to speak, at something. And so the 10,000 hour rule really applies to those things, and it's the practicing rule. Now, if you think about it, 10,000 hours is it's an awfully long time. It's something that you're really, really dedicated to. If you know, for example, my brother played in classical piano contests in high school, and he didn't practice nearly as much as a lot of the other kids. But he was a natural talent. He was really good. But if he had spent all that time practicing and then was still practicing now into his 30s, he would have hit 10,000 hours probably, and he'd be really, really, really freaking good. But of course, he's a lawyer. He's not a professional classical piano player. But that doesn't matter. The fact is that you have to spend a long time practicing your craft. And so I got thinking about it in terms of distance running. And there's a book I read in high school. It's called Run with the Best. It's by Roy Benson and Irv Ray. And it's a really influential book. Not as influential as Jack Daniel's distance running formula, but influential nonetheless. And it talks about a lot of generic things, developing speed, developing a large aerobic base, Arthur Lydiard style type of aerobic base, developing different types of workouts, aerobic power, anaerobic power, aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity, whatever you want to label those as, but also like doing like 10 by 100 meter all-out wind sprints. But the one takeaway in that book that I kind of wanted to connect with Malcolm Gladwell's idea of 10,000 hour rule, in Outliers at least, was that you have to run a certain amount of lifetime training miles, to reach your full potential in these different running events. And so there was a chart in one of the first early chapters of the book, Run with the Best, I believe it's called, that shows different events like the 1,500 meters, the mile, the 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon. And then next to it, it says you have to run, 20,000 miles, 30,000 miles, and it also has training hours too. I believe it's 3,000 training hours at 7-minute mile pace. Something pretty fast for an average mile pace, but this is for fairly elite runners. And that's what it's going to take for you to reach your potential in these different distance events. And the idea was that the longer distance events usually take more lifetime training miles, to kick in to reach your potential. So it's easier to train for maybe, the 100-meter sprint. Maybe you could be a really fast sprinter, lifting in the weight room, practicing your starting technique. In your early 20s, you might, plateau out as a sprinter. But for the marathon or even ultra marathon, you're getting that strength of decades of high mileage training, even in your 30s and 40s, and maybe even beyond, depending on your actual when you started running. So, it got me thinking, and I was like, well, that's pretty interesting. The lifetime miles, we always said running the marathon is a reflection of, when you toe the starting line of a marathon or ultra marathon, it's a reflection of how many miles you've run in your entire life. So you add up those lifetime miles. Now, obviously, if you get injured for a year, or you take a 5-year hiatus and, gain a little weight, maybe that might set you back a little bit for a while, but your legs don't forget not everything is lost. So if you've run a lot, if you've come from a background where you've run or not, everything you do now is still going to count towards your future lifetime total of miles. And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, the 10,000 hour rule of practice I don't think is quite as applicable to distance running, because distance running is not as much of a technique sport, so to speak, as something like playing a musical instrument or learning computer programming skills, where practice might really, really pay off. Where distance running, the technique's important, being able to have good downhill running technique, being able to know how to experience reading your body's conditions before you're going to bonk, what to eat, what to drink, how to pace yourself. Your running form technique, we could say, is very important, and I've been uploading some running form videos to YouTube as well. But the actual real determinant of performance, besides mental fortitude, mental strength, mental discipline, is usually what's inside that counts. The heart, the lungs, the blood flow, the muscles, the muscle fibers, how strong you are. And the neuromuscular connection between your mind and your muscles, could improve your efficiency. Little micro adjustments in your running form or running economy, as we'd say, being able to utilize oxygen more efficiently at certain range of paces during a certain activity, whether it's power hiking up a mountain at 10%, 20% grade, or it's flying down technical rocks, or it's running on a flat track or road for long periods of time. You could, fine-tune those things, but it's not necessarily a time thing, so to speak, as maybe a training stimulus. Now, it all goes together. The training takes time. It takes a long time to run a lot of miles. It takes a lot of practice to develop a nice aerobic base to get your blood flow really efficient, where you're building actually more capillary beds in your legs so that you have better blood flow to your muscles. There's more mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. You're just able to run at higher velocities and paces without tiring out as fast. And so, looking at my own example, I did a rough calculation, and, I've been running a lot. I've run for the last 18 years of my life pretty much nonstop. I'll probably take on average 2 to 4 weeks off per year, totally off. Those are off days. Maybe I got the flu one year, maybe I usually take at least 5 days off after a race. So maybe it's a little bit more than that. But other than that, I've been training year-round for the last 18 years of my life, and mainly just running. I do obviously a little cycling here and there, and I've done a little cross-training, but yeah, it's mainly running. And so I added up some miles, and I averaged some things out, and I was running a lot in high school even, up to 70 miles a week. And then in college, I had a real good stretch. 10 years ago, my sophomore year in college, I cracked 100 miles a week for the first time. And so there's been a lot of 100-mile weeks ever since then. So a lot of years I was racking in over 4,000 miles a year. I think my highest was 4,700 miles per year, with a good stretch of averaging 75, 80, 85 miles per week for entire years at a time, stacked on top of each other. And so all those lifetime miles added up, plus playing around the playground as an elementary school kid, running around the woods playing tag. I've estimated roughly that I've run about 60,000 miles in my life. And I was like, wow, that's kind of sounding, Big Red, my old 97 RAV4 manual transmission, it only has 170,000 miles on it. Like, I'm getting up there in terms of wear and tear on my body here. 60,000 miles, it sounds like a lot. And, Run with the Best would say, I've definitely should be reaching my potential in the marathon now. Hopefully not, though. But if you do the math on it, and you say, well, maybe all those miles, a lot of them have been trail miles now, a lot of them were miles when I was younger. If I averaged 8-minute mile pace per mile, that's still not even close to 10,000 hours. So there's still hope, I guess, is what we're saying, as Malcolm Gladwell would say. And what I'd like to believe is there's still a little potential improvement for someone like me, even though I've been running a lot and I'm getting older. I still feel relatively young for an ultra runner, and I can hope to continue to improve and keep things going. But the thing for me is improvement is going to be a lot more marginal than probably for someone like you. And I'm just going to assume right now that you probably haven't run a ton of 100-plus mile weeks. Maybe you have. I might be wrong, but I'm going to assume most listeners probably run as much as they have time for, because I know you got work obligations, family obligations. Everyone's really pressed for time. And maybe you picked up running later in life. So, maybe you weren't running super, super serious like I was an all-out runner nerd in middle school, already doing all sorts of interval workouts and tempo runs and things like that. So what I'm saying, I guess, is that we all have a ceiling for improvement, but a lot of us, the goal is to try to scrape up to the extent of trying to reach our 100% maximum potential and to make big improvements to get there, because it's fun. It's fun to improve. It's fun to run farther than you ever have. It's fun to get PRs on courses or performance breakthroughs and lose weight or be fit, run at lower heart rates, and just run faster and get more joy out of the sport. So I need a sip of beer. Just a minute here. Okay, much better. So applying the 10,000 hour rule, it's a rough estimate, but I think lifetime mileage is probably more specific to distance running. And so you could say they kind of go hand in hand, because, the time it takes to train to run. But we're not even close to our potential. We've got, 60,000 lifetime miles, not 10,000 hours yet. Still a long way to go, and still something I want to keep trying to improve on. And so, applying that is interesting. And, practicing your skill, putting in the time, putting in the effort, time on your feet, does pay dividends in the future. And consistent training over time, especially training that is a little bit at a higher level maybe than what you've done in the past, might take a while to kick in. It might make you more tired initially. It might injure you if you're not careful, but eventually it will kick in, and you'll be able to hopefully improve on what may be a plateau of level off in fitness or diminishing return in fitness. If your results have diminished a little, sometimes you have off seasons, but things will get better in the future. And they haven't always been great for me. Last 4 years in ultra running, just for examples. A big improvement for me is taking 3 minutes off my 50-mile time at Lake Sonoma, for example, running 6:15 one year, and I think I ran 6:12 the next year. So same 50-mile course, maybe slightly different weather conditions, improved by 3 minutes. It's very marginal. My marathon time, I ran my 2:16 PR in 2011, and I consider my performance at Boston last year, at 2:19:12, to be a better performance because it was really crappy weather conditions, and I got 16th at Boston. But I've never run faster than my marathon PR. Granted, I haven't focused on it for years and years and years like I did before coming out of college, running a lot of 10Ks and then moving up to half marathon and marathons. So the emphasis, the focus of your training does have to be specific, and it does take time to reach that mastery level, or to reach, at least scrape closer and closer to what your true potential is. Because you could think of it as a limit, or as an asymptote, and you're scraping up you're approaching the limit, so to speak. So we're all trying to improve on that journey, and you got to enjoy the process. But that's my one connection with Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 Hour Rule. Now, the other thing in Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, is the idea that, well, it's kind of a theme, and I don't want to give away the whole book. It's not a top secret story or anything. It's factual information, but kind of the idea, at least in the U.S., in American culture, people do like to praise the self-made man, self-made woman. Kind of the story of rags to riches stories. Andrew Carnegie, these people that maybe came to America with a penny in their pocket, and they ended up being millionaires and billionaires, and people that came out of adversity and then became super wealthy, super successful. And I think that's really inspiring. That's those stories are really cool. But in American culture, we seem to glamorize that a lot, whereas what Gladwell kind of digs into in his book and hints at is that we're essentially not always all self-made. We've had to rely on a structure of community. We've had to rely on the support of tons of other people, no matter who we are, to be able to progress in life and to be able to do amazing things, maybe things that inspire others, or maybe things that make us wealthy, or at least happy in life. And this old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And I'm not saying guys like Andrew Carnegie were spoiled as youth. A lot of them come out of very dire circumstances, and then they rise above. But the opportunity is important, and recognizing opportunity, I think, is the important thing. You have to be, a visionary if you want to succeed in your industry or in your career, whatever field that may be in. But at the same time, recognizing environmental conditions, recognizing changing times, and the external forces all around you that may mold you a certain way, or may make the battle easier or harder for you. And one of the examples Gladwell uses is with sports, which is why I'm ranting about this even. And it's about hockey players in the Canada League, junior level hockey leaguers. So these are kids looking to eventually make the ranks up to the dream of becoming a professional hockey player in Canada. And obviously, hockey's a very big sport in Canada. It was big at Cornell University, where I went to school, actually. We had a lot of Canadians that came down to play for us. But he actually looked at who became successful, who made the competitive teams, who made the tryouts, who went on to do this. And there was a weird correlation where it mattered more on when your birthday was, what time your birthday was in the year, almost more than anything else, or actually more than anything else. And what ended up happening basically was that generally as kids are growing through adolescence, they get bigger pretty fast, especially guys. It could be a big difference to be a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old. You might be in the middle of your growth spurt or something. So the kids where the season cutoff was, the kids born earlier in the year, in the winter months, ended up being selected more often to go to the big leagues and to advance through the sport. Whereas the kids born later in the year, usually, didn't make the cuts as often. And it's because on average they were smaller, they were slightly younger. And I need another sip of beer, sorry. So, it didn't matter how skilled they were, how well they practiced, but physical size in a sport like hockey kind of matters too. And if the kids who are 10 months older on a growth spurt happen to also be pretty skilled, they're going to look a lot more dominant. And so it was kind of just saying like, hey, if you're born later in the year, you could still be a professional hockey player maybe, but the odds are stacked against you. It's just a little harder. Just like if maybe you're born in certain states in the U.S. in a certain community where running is frowned upon or is not a very popular sport, maybe it's slightly less likely that you'll be, an all-star distance runner. Whereas if you go to a country like Kenya or Ethiopia, where running is considered a great national sport and a great profession, you have kids lined up on these dirt tracks running hard intervals, running to and from school, mainly because they have to, but they're also running because they know that they have a legacy and that they're very determined, even though maybe they're in poverty, to run out of those circumstances. Now, which scenario might produce better distance runners? So I'm just saying, environmental factors do play a role in shaping you in different ways and being aware of that. And I guess I don't want to get really boring here, but I guess I'll just share kind of my own story of getting into running and saying that, I've been really, really fortunate along my whole journey in running to be able to do, just to do this podcast, for example, but also to be able to run competitive ultras and to have sponsors even, and to be able to make YouTube videos even, to have that kind of luxury. That came out of a lot of people's support. That came out of the running community, the generosity of the running community. It came out of, initially when I started running, the encouragement and support of my parents. But even if we look beyond that, the soccer coach telling me I wasn't good with the soccer ball, telling me to run up and down the field. He did me a favor, because then I got into running. I quit soccer. I was like, you're not very good at soccer. You should get into running. And he didn't mean to insult me, but I got into running. But also to be growing up in a culture in Oregon, the state of Oregon, with Eugene, Oregon, the track capital of the United States, with runners especially in Portland, Oregon, around my the same year as a guy named Galen Rupp, who was just in the Olympics. He's in the Olympics in the marathon and the 10K. And so to be in the same division of Oregon as these really, really fast guys, just kind of raised the whole standard of Oregon high school cross country and track running just when I was in high school. And it just happened to be also that my dad was a public school teacher, taught out of district from where I grew up. I happened to go to his school because I could go, commute with him to work and go out of district. And that happened to be a large school division in Oregon. Whereas if I went to maybe a smaller school, it would have been less kids to compete against. I wouldn't have competed against the big guns like Galen Rupp. Not that I was close to him, but it would have been a different running experience. Whereas just happened to be, I was in the large school division in Oregon when it was one of, if not the most competitive high school running year in state history, in a state that's enriched in distance running tradition. So, if you think about all these external factors that got me personally passionate about the sport of distance running, it didn't all come from within. There were all these external factors. And my parents were amazingly supportive. They still are amazingly supportive. If you've seen any of the YouTube videos, Racing the Darkness by Ginger Runner at Western States, they're out there crewing for me. They're encouraging me to do races. They've always supported my running. I couldn't have done any of this without their support. They've just been over the top supportive. And, they weren't distance runners. They weren't all-stars in college or all-star athletes or anything. So not to knock you, Mom and Dad, but I think maybe the biggest gift they gave me wasn't genetics for running. Now, granted, they both run now, in their 60s, amazingly. But I didn't get maybe, the Galen Rupp's genetics, we'll say. But what I did get was just as valuable because it was my parents' support. And it was support not only from my parents, but support from my coaches, support in high school, support in college. My college coach just happens to be the co-founder of Let'sRun.com. So I was always into a lot of running media and gaining insight from all these amazing, incredible athletes, teammates at Cornell, being nurtured to run a marathon in college, but then to have the opportunity, the support of all you guys on YouTube, on following these podcasts, people that have followed me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, now Instagram. Just to have that kind of support has allowed me to get sponsors and to be able to have the opportunity to do what I do today. And so, it's been an amazing journey, and I want to keep the momentum going. But I do want to thank all you guys because it's been a big network team effort. The running community has been very generous to me, and so I recognize that. And it's the same with applying it to it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a lot of support from a lot of people sometimes for you maybe to have opportunities to progress in your career or in your hobby or in developing relationships with extended family or anything down those lines. It's something where you could look back on easier in the benefit of hindsight. You look back and say, hey, wow, when I made that decision in life, when I had that opportunity and I seized it, that I really went down a different path. And maybe I could have made a million other choices that would have led in different directions. But at the same time, I was shaped by environmental factors. I was shaped by external forces and the external community, friends, family, extended relatives, total strangers, and that's what's shaped in my progression. And I think for future success in anything, a lot of it is about recognizing opportunity and not making the right choices, but recognizing opportunity and learning lessons from mistakes or from things that get you down sometimes too. So I don't really know where I'm going exactly with this, but Malcolm Gladwell, good runner, good author. If you haven't, I assume a lot of you probably have read at least one of his books. The other one's Blink, at least the other famous one, I should say. Blink, Tipping Point, Outliers, David and Goliath. And David Goliath is also really good. I read that one, I think, a year or two ago. And it kind of talks about, being the underdog mentality. Always like to root for the underdog, but sometimes the underdog has an advantage, ironically. So that's kind of the gist of that book. But as always, like in my first podcast, I'm going to close with a little diet nutrition type of rant. I promise this won't be very long. You guys have been great listeners so far, so really do appreciate it. I've been doing some more reading, always reading. And, I'll admit I haven't finished this book. Tim Ferriss is the author. Again, he wrote 4 Hour Workweek, which is, I believe, a national bestseller. Pretty popular book. A lot of you have read it. I read that. It was good. It's solid. It's good. I think, the idea of optimizing your work so that you could be more of your own boss and that you could free up your most precious commodity in life, which is time, is a great goal. And he talks about working more mobile, so maybe you could have more time where you stay at home and you could work from a computer or work from your laptop, work on a tropical beach somewhere as long as you have an internet connection. And so that kind of resonated with me, kind of just being business minded. It's a great book, 4 Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. That really is, I think, what he is probably famous for. He's a famous guy, fellow Ivy League alum, Princeton grad, I believe. St. Paul's School is a pretty elite prep high school that he went to. One of my teammates at Cornell actually went to that school, St. Paul's. He's obviously a very sharp guy. Wrote 4 Hour Workweek. But the book I want to talk about that he wrote that I'm still reading. I'm in the middle of it, and I only bought it because I like to buy kind of, well, I'll say, I don't want to say gimmicky, but kind of like diet marketing types of things that I think have, some interest, and I want to see what angle they come in at, even if I don't agree with them. And so I bought his book. I think it's called The 4-Hour Body. I don't even know what it's called. That's really bad. It's his other book. It's on diet, nutrition, exercise, sex life, something. But I'm reading the part on nutrition, and I'm in the middle of it, and he's talking about how to lose weight on his foolproof type of diet, and maybe he talks about other diets later on in the book. I think he probably will. And it's kind of paleo type of based, relatively high protein, relatively high fat, and low carbohydrate type of diet. And obviously he cites authors that are pretty that are cited often by people in the paleo movement. Now, that's fine. The one thing that I was flipping through the pages. Well, no, I was skimming on my Kindle actually, but I was skimming through the pages, and he says one of the rules on this weight loss diet, it's a weight loss diet, is that you're not supposed to eat fruit 6 days a week. And you can only eat fruit the 1 day a week, because the 1 day a week is your cheat day, where you could eat whatever you want. You could eat donuts, you're supposed to eat like a crap ton of junk food on your cheat day. But the rest of the time, 6 days a week on this diet, no white carbs, he calls them, no rice, not even brown rice, no pastas, obviously no breads, anything like that, but no fruit, that evil fruit. And, I'll admit, he's a sharp guy. He's a sharp guy. I'm sure he has lost weight on this type of diet. I'm sure lots of people have, and it's touted, it's marketed as a weight loss diet. It's not, and nowhere does he say that it's a healthy diet. He's not saying it's a healthy. You can't say it's a healthy diet, I don't think, in my opinion, to not eat fruit, to intentionally not eat fruit 6 days a week, and think that fruit is this evil type of thing. I think that's just baloney. And he cites, he's like, well, you chug orange juice and this happens. Well, yeah, a concentrated fruit juice is a little bit different than eating a whole orange, right? So yeah, I'd agree with him on the point of chugging a bunch of apple juice. You probably don't want to drink a gallon of apple juice every day unless you're exercising like crazy. But even then, it's a very concentrated form with less fiber than actually eating a physical apple, eating the skin, eating the pulp, eating an orange. But he says no fruit. No fruit. You're not supposed to eat. You're not supposed to eat fruit. And yeah, I'm sure you could lose weight on what he suggests. Eating some hard-boiled eggs, eating some bacon for breakfast, having some pretty high-fat, high-protein animal products. Again, the other ironic thing in it that I mean to criticize, and I don't want to pick on Tim too much here, because he's obviously a very sharp guy, and I know he's also done some other things, and I do have to finish the book first. But the other thing, you're not supposed to eat dairy, which is very paleo, and as a vegan, that's something that would be in line with, as a plant-based athlete, I should say, that would be something more in line with not going to town on a bunch of cheese and ice cream and all that. But you're not supposed to eat dairy, but you could eat cottage cheese because of the high amount of casein protein in it. And to me, that's just that just doesn't make sense. Like if you're not supposed to eat dairy, you probably shouldn't eat cottage cheese. And ironically, when I was at Cornell and I saw a sports nutritionist, and keep in mind Cornell's kind of known for its nutrition department. I took some classes in nutrition there. I'm not sure if the nutritionist that worked there actually went to Cornell and got her degree, but anyway, she had always recommended, she looked at my food log, my food diet, and what am I eating as a poor college kid who's working part-time jobs to make ends meet? Well, I'm eating a lot of spaghetti with plain tomato sauce on it, and maybe a little salad, maybe a little garlic bread on the side. But I ate a lot of pasta in college, cooking at home, boiling some noodles. You get by pretty cheap on some nice pasta. And she looks at that, she's like, wow, it's a lot of carbs. Not enough protein. Like, where's your protein? Oh, you're a vegetarian? Oh, it's this nightmare. Like, you need more protein. You need to add cottage cheese to your pasta. And I know I mentioned this in my one of my nutrition rants on the YouTube videos, but just, the irony. And I never really even liked cottage cheese that much, honestly. But again, as a plant-based athlete, not worried about the protein at all. More worried about B12, more worried about sometimes iron, not worried about protein. So we'll just leave it at that, I guess, for this podcast. I do have to finish Tim Ferriss, his book, and I'll let you know how it goes. I'm kind of skeptical when he starts getting into the stacking of drugs and supplements. He does natural herbs now, but he has stacked some pretty heavy-duty stimulants that would definitely trip drug tests for PEDs and things like that, obviously, and seriously mess you up. But I mean, this is also a guy that's admitted to taking steroids, and then also claims to be winning awards in martial arts or kickboxing. I forget what it is, but something a little fishy that doesn't sit well with me. And again, this is kind of an end rant here. I don't want to end on being too critical of the guy, because I really did like 4-hour work week. But yeah, just some random things that I've been thinking about just from things that I've read, and you could comment or disagree with me. Open to suggestions on here as always. But thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Sage Running Podcast. Again, I really want to take this up to the next level, hopefully improve the quality of the content, so we could get you some more discussions on maybe long-form training talks. We could delve into nutrition. I know probably some of you don't agree on my stance on plant-based athleticism, plant-based lifestyle, but that's always a thing that's going to be passionate for me. But I do like to talk about the training, and I do want to get some guests on here for sure. So yeah, keep the suggestions and feedback coming. Thank you so much again for all the support. Like I mentioned throughout this podcast, none of this would be possible without the support of listeners and viewers like you. Really, that is the truth. And thanks to my parents. But yeah, it's really a dream come true. I've been very, very fortunate, and it's fun to share running related media in these different outlets now, and it blows me away that you could do so much with a computer and an internet connection, and even for that I feel very fortunate. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate all the support on Patreon as well. Stay tuned for exclusive content on there. And yeah, again, you can follow me on other forms of social media at Sage Canaday on Twitter and Instagram, Sage Canaday on Strava, VO2 Max Productions on YouTube, Sage Canaday fan page on Facebook. But thank you again, guys. Hope your running's going well, and stay tuned for more Sage Running podcasts.